Thank you. Now we're going to go to item 31. This is consideration of ordinance number 15-1548, repealing Carson Municipal Code Article 2, Chapter 1, Section 2110, related to the city administrative orders and directives to staff. Could we have a staff report on this, please?
Yes, this would repeal the ordinance dealing with orders by the city council to the city staff. Dates back to an ordinance that was adopted in the 90s, and then an SMP that further clarified that. Actually, back in 2000, there was a inter-office memo that was issued that said that whenever staff members asked to visit the office of a member of the city council member is required to notify the city manager, and actually required to get approval. And I proposed that it be changed to just notify the city manager as just a good government practice. That administrative memo is something that I issued in December, but this deals with the ordinance relative to says the city council and its members shall deal with the administrative services of the city only through the city manager, except for the purpose of inquiry, and neither the city council nor any member thereof shall give orders to any subordinate of the city manager. That's what's being proposed to be eliminated.
Okay. Councilman, actually, this came from a policy committee also. It was first brought up by Councilmember Robles, and then the City Council referred it to the subcommittee on policy. The subcommittee on policy, there should be a report from that subcommittee. Your staff should have that report, Mr. City Manager.
I'm not sure who staffed that committee.
I think it was Ms. Berglund.
Did you staff that?
You have the report?
You know, I've staffed that committee in the past, but I don't recall this particular item being on an agenda. But I could maybe just not be remembering tonight.
I think we're out of. You weren't here.
I'm not sure who staffed that committee. I didn't do it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Actually, I happened to be back in the chambers as you guys were going to start meeting, and you asked me to step into the meeting with you guys, so I staffed it.
Part of it, okay. City attorney staffed the meeting, and we voted to approve the recommendation to approve this ordinance 15-1548, which repeals the particular article 2, Chapter 1, Section 2110. And so this is a recommendation of the policy subcommittee. So I will make the motion that it says right here, upon recommendation of the policy subcommittee. Actually, the word sub is missing. It must be a typo. As a city manager, could you be sure that the staff uses the term subcommittee? You see where it says recommendation? Upon recommendation of the policy subcommittee. Do you see that? Mr. Assistant City Manager, do you see that? Okay. That we waive further reading and introduce ordinance number 15-1548, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Carson, California, repealing Carson Municipal Code Article 2, Chapter 1, Section 2110, related to city administrative orders and directives to staff. Is there a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem Santorino. We're now in discussion of the motion. Chair recognizes Council Member Holmes, Davis Holmes.
So repealing this means what? Because I'm kind of lost on where you are. It's 12 o'clock. So that means, according to the way we're appealing this, that I can go to the staff and say, I want you to do A, B, C, and D, and I'm to do it? Or does it mean that, what does it mean? Because I'm looking at directives, and are you saying that we as the body can go and give directions to the staff, or I want you to attend a workshop and the city manager does not have to be in attendance? Does it mean that specifically I need you to check on those restrooms? I got a customer complaining over here. One of our residents, constituents are complaining. Just what does it mean?
Let's ask the city attorney to answer that question.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, you have a municipal code section that tries to, I believe, summarize what the city manager form of government is, that any directives given to staff basically goes through the city manager. So repealing this section really doesn't change much because you do have a city manager form of government, and that's how things typically get done in a city manager form of government. I guess it provides some more flexibility for council members to directly talk to staff. I do not believe it changes that directives given still go through the proper channels. I don't know if that answers your question.
I do not believe it's not affirmative enough for me. I do not believe it means that it may or may not. I need to know, what does it mean? Because I could see this being opened up a can of worms. Okay, and I can see that our city manager's role being watered down. I want to be able to talk to staff, granted, I do. But this staff cannot have 5 of us telling them what to do and not reporting to going through the chain of command. You're going to have a frustrated staff because they don't know who's on first and who's on second, who should they be following. So what does it mean? Does it mean I have the flexibility now to say, you know what, like I think the councilman brought it up, there was an incident at the community center. Well, like me, I don't want anything changed in here. I'm okay with that, but I'm talking about directives, staff assignments. Are they going to flow through the chain of command, or do I have the authority to say that I don't want this done, a certain project? Because who's going to be held accountable? Okay, who's going to be held accountable if I can go and tell a staff person, no, I want this done, and the city manager doesn't know anything about it? So what are we talking about? I don't believe so does not answer my question.
Okay, Madam City Attorney, I will answer that. If a staff person is given a directive by one member of the City Council and giving a counter directive by another member of the City Council, what is the logical thing to happen? The staff person goes to the city manager, who is their boss. Of course that's what they would do. What else would they do? They wouldn't take the action that one council member wanted, and then later on that day take the action of the other council member, which counteracts what they first did. They're not crazy. They're going to go to the city manager and say, look, I have 2 council members. One wants us to paint the wall blue. The other wants us to paint the wall yellow. The city manager would handle that. But if we're at the senior center and the seniors say it's too hot, you have this, or it's too cold, we're not going to call the city manager and say, hey, turn on the air conditioning or turn off the air conditioning. We're going to go to the staff and say, we're getting complaints from the senior citizens. It's too cold in there. Would you please, see to it that their comfort's taken care of. We cannot burden the city manager with every single thing that the 5 of us see. And the 5 of us see a lot. We bring things to him that certainly cost money. He has to deal with that if it has any fiscal impact. Things that staff members don't know if they should do, the city manager has to make those decisions. That won't change. The city manager is still the city manager. It just means that we are free to speak with members of the staff, like we do already, and I must point this out, that it's almost like when President Carter lowered the speed limit across the nation to 55 miles an hour. Well, nobody adhered to that rule. I mean, some people did, but I mean, in general, figure of speech, people did not generally adhere to that rule. People used to go in 65 or more on the freeway. They went over 55. So you made, violators out of all these people that weren't normally violators. So our city council members already do this. We already bring to staff members items that we think should be brought to their attention. We do it through the CARES system sometimes, and sometimes the CARES system doesn't work. Why should the residents of Carson suffer because the CARES system isn't working? I've had a situation where in our parks, basketball courts needed to be refurbished. And we put it in as complaints from residents. Tennis courts need to be refurbished. You put it in complaints and nothing gets done. So we go to staff members and say, hey, is this in the system? Have you been made aware of it? We're not going to go to the city manager with every single thing that needs to be done. He's only one person. It's not realistic. But of course, anything really, really important or costing money, the city manager has to make that decision, not us.
Mr. Mayor.
Unless it comes on the city council agenda, and then we make the decision. Go ahead. I still have the floor, but you have a question or comment?
Well, I still have the floor, too. Painting a wall blue that you go to, we meet with the directors. And all we need to do is say what we've been doing. Miss Public Works Director, their wall needs to be painting over there. I've gotten complaints. Or the basketball needs refurbishing. Cedric Hicks, did you know the basketball needs resurfacing at whatever park? The burden of responsibility to get it done is on upper management. Turning off the heat and all those trivial things, yes, we should be able to do that. Yes, we should. We should not be going and interfering and telling staff, I need you to attend. It's certain things I want you to order. I need you to attend this meeting. I need you to go here. And the director doesn't know anything about it. The city manager doesn't know anything about it. And they don't know who the boss is. I think there's a clear line of communication. Yes, we need to be able to communicate with staff because I do it all the time. But the burden of responsibility for running this city lies with the city manager and his staff. I really am reluctant to us going and giving directives to staff to do tasks that fall up under the authority of the directors and the city manager. I'm just reluctant to do that because I know what's going to happen. This staff is going to be so confused when I walk down. Well, no, you can't do that. And just like you said, what if I tell, I want the wall painted green. No councilwoman wanted it painted blue. Well, now you got to take it back. And then what if it comes down to, well, the mayor said, but councilwoman, he's the mayor of the city. He wants it this way. You're going to run into some problems. I'm not a nothing but a realist. That's what I am. And I understand what's going on here. And we need to come up. This is not a cure-all to everything. It should be clear directives, and we should give examples of what we're talking about instead of saying, well, I want you to do this and I want you to do that. I've been a staff person, okay? And I know what happens when council comes and start giving directives. But I always had the whereabouts and the guts to say, I understand what you're hearing, councilman. I understand what you're hearing, Mr. Mayor. I will take that to my boss. And putting the burden of responsibility back where it belongs. Directives and on staff, things that make this city work. We have 7 department heads. How many do we have? 6? I remember. Well, assistant city manager and a city manager. And I just don't think we should be watering down. We should clarify what we're talking about. Are we talking about general things, turning off air conditionings, moving specific things, but attending meetings, performing jobs, duties and responsibilities? Directors need to know that. They need to have, and we should hold them accountable for doing their job. Who are you going to hold accountable if you give them the directive? who you going to hold accountable? I like accountability. Chain of command, and we are the body that sets the policy, not the body that gives directions to staff, other than little trivial things. I have no problem with that because I do it all the time. I want this plant moved. I'd like this done. Could you meet me here? I have no problem with that, but I have a problem with giving directions to staff because now they don't know who their boss is. And that's what this is, Miss City Attorney?
Again, as I stated, that there are state laws that deal with how things operate in this form of a government. So repealing your municipal code section doesn't change the state laws. And as far as providing directive to staff, I'm not sure that the council was aware of this municipal code before the city manager brought it to your attention. So I can't really comment on what the impacts of repealing the section will be, because I think in practice, you don't even know that it existed. So I don't know how things will change, because I think you go on. I mean, I can't comment on it. All I can tell you is that there are state laws that apply when it comes to having this form of government, and those state laws would supersede your municipal code anyways, and you're not repealing the state law that deals with it. So can one council person walk to a staff person and say, I'm giving you a directive to do this, and it's something that has to do with finances, with something big? I don't think they can. It has to be a direction from the majority of the council. It has to go through a process. It has to be something that's put on the agenda. But what the mayor was saying also makes sense. If a council person wants to go say turn down the air condition under this municipal code, the way it's drafted, potentially somebody could argue, no, I'm not going to turn it down. You don't get to tell me to turn down the air condition. Go talk to the city manager and have him come tell me to turn it down. So when I staffed the meeting, the subcommittee meeting, I think that was the concern that was expressed by the subcommittee members, that now that the municipal code section has come to everybody's attention, before nobody even knew it existed, they were concerned now that it has come to everybody's attention, if they want to give simple directives like turn on the air condition, or can you sweep here, or we got this, staff could say, well, we're not going to do it, you got to go through the city manager. That was the concern they had. So they thought, okay, repealing this, since we still have the state law that applies, should not be a problem. It just doesn't create a situation.
You answered my question. Little simple things I have no problem with, because I've been in violation for 8 years with this code, but I just want to make sure it's directed, task oriented. What are we talking about? Menial task or big ticket items? So thank you very much. I've been in violation, so.
Okay, the chair recognizes Council Member Robles.
The city attorney touched on what I was going to mention. I think, as the councilwoman stated, we've all been in violation because it was overly restrictive, and we could stay here and hypothetically come up with scenarios that are at the other extreme, but I actually have confidence in our staff. I think that there's nothing in this, that my understanding, that prevents a staff member from notifying the city manager. If I go to Mr. Hicks and ask him to do something like work on what's required to get a beer garden at the Cinco de Mayo at Carson Park, I mean, I'm assuming that he'll not shake his head. All right, Councilman, I'll do that. But he's going to notify the city manager, because that's what he's going to do.
Of course.
There's only one person that is accountable to the city manager, to the city council, and that's the city manager. And if the city manager doesn't have the confidence in his staff, or the staff doesn't have the confidence in him to go up and report things to him, then we got problems. But what is definitely clear is that as it was written, we're all in violation, and that tells me that as it was written was not properly written and needed to be changed. The committee, I'm assuming, weighed, a subcommittee weighed various ways of amending it. They could have, said, task. Well, how do you define task? They could have put a dollar amount. Well, anything that costs more than $10, it needs to go to, So I think I wasn't there, but I think there comes a point where we have to have confidence in the staff that they're going to do the right thing, and if they don't, there'll be consequences, and if they don't, we'll be discussing this again in very quick order.
The chair recognizes Mayor Pro Tem Santorino.
I've been hearing all the statements you're saying, but I think when I saw the word inquiry, I mean, that's very clear to me that definitely, no one can, well, I'll say no one can really stop me if I'd like to inquire and just get some information from the director, from the staff about this. But I know in my mind already that this staff, again, it was stated by Council Member Robles, but of course, this staff will run it by the boss, by the superintendent, by the supervisor, or of course, run it by the city manager. So that's one thing that is really, I am comfortable with that. But, you're coming up with some trivial things. So I'm ordering you to do this. I'm ordering you to do that. Has it ever happened here in the city of Carson that we are giving orders to our staff and they said no, well, I don't know of any incident that happened, saying, okay, I want you to do this, and with definite instruction, and of course, there is a word of caution to let's not do things that are illegal. We got to be doing this legally and run this by the city attorney. Making sure that we are all doing things legally and properly and ethically and all of that. So that is, I don't have any problem with that. But my question here is through, Madam City Attorney, is this something that you can look into, and how is this issue being used, implemented, or, by other cities? I will be interested in
take
this.
a stab at it.
Sure. There are cities that have this municipal code section. There are cities that don't have it. I think the cities that don't have it don't see a need for it because, again, there are state laws that cover how you run this form of government. So I think those cities just don't think it's necessary, but there are then cities that do it differently. I haven't really compared our section to the other code sections. This was drafted way before we were your city attorneys, and so I haven't compared it verbatim from the other codes.
The reason why I raised that is because I just want to make sure, that I'm particularly understanding the objective issue to it and the subjective issue, at hand. So.
I would assume the objective behind it at the time it was drafted was that you don't have one council person or two council people walking up to staff and telling them to, do major things, to do what a city manager that needs to go through a city manager, that a city manager needs to put on a council agenda to. So I would think that was the objective, that you don't have different council giving big directives to staff. But I don't know. I wasn't here. I don't know what the purpose behind. And we couldn't even find the ordinance that that effectuated this law, so we couldn't even look at what the reasoning behind it was. That the ordinance
And
is
this
so
has been
old that we
there,
couldn't find it.
and and this has been there.
Mayor Pro Tem, are you
Forever.
complete?
Well, I'm still trying to understand exactly, or do we just be, in terms of objectivity, maybe what we could do is just come up with some scenarios or some cases there where what we can do and what we cannot do, and what the city manager can do and cannot do, or members of the management team, what can do and cannot do. So even if we have to come up with a long list, with a long menu of list of what it's all about, what we can do and cannot do.
It'd be clear.
So
I don't know. Are you complete?
yes,
I don't think we need a long list,
I know. I'm just
my opinion. But
Say
I
that.
do think that we have to look at this from a practical standpoint.
okay.
Sometimes a member of the public or a business person, they have a problem and they want to meet with a council member. We might be able to bring a field deputy into the conversation, but what happens is many times we can't resolve their issue. The staff has to be involved. So what we do is we ask the staff to join the meeting. It's very efficient, because if you don't do it that way, then of course you have the meeting with a constituent. You don't have the answers to their questions. You don't have the ability to solve their problem. So what do? You have to have another meeting with the constituent and staff. So why not have the staff in the first meeting? Have one meeting instead of two meetings. Yeah, I do too.
We all do.
Yeah, have someone, or right, or maybe a department head. We might ask, Senator, can you send someone over? We need help, on this issue. Or maybe we're in the middle of a conversation with a person, and you know what? We might be able to solve the issue if we only have the right information and the right staff person. So should we call the city manager, who's in a meeting or on the phone, busy, and say, interrupt the city manager. I want him to tell Cedric to send someone over here. It's not very practical. Now, we do have an assistant city manager, so that facilitates things, so that's good. But let's be realistic. We as elected officials want to help our constituents. And if we can do it in one meeting instead of two meetings, that's the way to do it. The city manager should be aware and notified and be informed of what's going on. But I don't think we have to go to the city manager every single time we want anything. And we're not really directing staff when we're getting information from staff, and we're not directing staff when they're having them meet with a constituent either. We're saying, well, here's the problem. You're the staff member. That's the type of thing that you do. You're paid to do that. Go ahead and do your job. And if you want to call the city manager and say, should I do my job that you're paying me for? Go ahead. But they probably don't need to do that. They know that that's their job. If the public works director or a community development director or any director has a responsibility, they do it. They're not going to call the city manager and say, do you want me to do my job today? Not practical. So that's why I think we need to just take this small little, I think it's like one sentence or two sentences out.
And Mr. Mayor, I may add that you do have a policy that requires staff to notify the city manager if they're being approached by a council person to have a meeting with them or to where they're requiring information. So staff do have an obligation to notify the city manager.
I think that's a good thing. The city manager should be aware of what's going on.
It's been observed already.
Yeah, and then
Isn't it?
That's the responsibility of the staff to let the city manager know. Oh, I met with council member so and so, and they brought to our attention we have a problem with a tree that's up to the sidewalk or something. The care system didn't work. The resident fell down because they had a walker and they fell over it. Let's fix that right away. And the city manager's out of town. You don't wait, you act on something like that. And then the staff will let the city manager know, hey, I did my job. You hired me to do this, and I did it. City manager's not going to say, oh, you shouldn't have done it. They're going to say, good. And everything works. And they all live happily ever after.
Mr. Mayor, my concern is, I think I've said it, is that accountability and responsibility. Trivial things. I would just like a list of, may not put it in here, of the city attorney, the little examples. For example, this and this. I think it would be best because I could see you bypassing a department director. Department director is given his or her work order for the day, and then here comes little me coming along. Well, I want this done. I don't want to see that. I want to be able to have open line of communication. So just a few little tweaks as examples of what we're talking about, so we're all on the same page. It doesn't have to be. I think it should be changed because I've been in violation, but I also like to know so that we're all doing the same thing on the same page.
So I would like to.
Items.
I'm sorry. I still have the floor, but you have a question?
Yeah, just a few little samples of what we're talking about.
Okay, I will accept that as a friendly amendment to the motion that I made, that we create a list of
small list
of examples so that people who want to have a list can have a list.
Well, I don't know.
As a guideline.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, no, I'm confused about that. Do you want a list of what other cities are doing, or
No,
you want
a list of examples. If this passes tonight,
okay,
then a list of examples should be created to help the council members know whether or not we should call the city manager first or call the department head first, or what we should do.
And do you
the
want
staff
that
knows
as
what
form
to do
of,
already.
in form of like a policy or what? Like just
Fanny,
a list?
I can just do that. I can just do that through SMP.
Okay.
Just do that myself.
Administratively. So he'll just produce that list. Okay?
SMP.
I
Okay.
accept that as a friendly amendment. So the motion, and now we're going to vote on the motion because, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning and we still have a lot of agenda items to do. So let's now vote on the amended motion.
Okay, let's vote.
With the list included.
I can live with that one.
Unanimous 4-0 for the record.